Hey, Steve Riley, welcome to this episode of Great Practice, Great Life. And we're here today to squeeze some brilliant advice and wisdom from a fantastic lawyer who's really done some amazing things with a very unique challenge. Now, before we get too deep in that, I want to introduce her. So, Lauren, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you here because you've confronted some unique challenges. But before we get too deep into that, let's just kind of give people context. Where are you? What's your practice like? And then, your favorite type of clients. And then we'll dig into the challenge a little bit. So I want to give people a context.
Sure. So I am the principal owner of Ayers Presser Elder Law. We're located in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, which is the west central part of the state. We're about 80 miles east of Pittsburgh. We service a wide county area throughout that region, and elder law is the primary focus of our firm. I consider myself to be an estate planner. That's probably the area of law that I love practicing the most. And I love creative estate planning. Love helping people that are business owners, people who may have blended family situations, special needs and disability planning. We do a great amount of that in our firm. And then, there's always the estate and trust administration work that carries us through. Because our demographics here, we have a lot of people who are either on their way to the nursing home or potentially going into a nursing home because of long-term care needs and things like that. And so we do a lot of that help for people as well, helping them with getting Medicaid benefits, long-term care benefits, and whatnot. So we have a pretty robust practice in the elder law field.
It sounds like it. It sounds like it's pretty intense. Now, you came to Atticus from a very unique perspective. But before we talk about that, you actually bought the firm that you currently operate, which is one of the things I'd like to talk to you about. So, could you set the stage for everybody? And just want to get clear with anyone who's listening to this. I don't care if you're estate planning, elder law, real estate, family law, immigration, personal injury, it doesn't matter, are applicable to every practice area. So, I wanted people to understand where you're at geographically, who you serve, why you serve those people, but I also don't want them to be distracted by the type of law, because sometimes it happens. Lawyers, well, she's not a family law lawyer. She's not a PI lawyer. She doesn't understand my world. So I just want to kind of clear the air real quick. Anything that you're going to talk about is applicable to any practice area. Is that fair?
I think so, for sure.
Okay, great. So let's talk about let's talk about the story of how you bought your practice.
So I'm originally from this area. I did a stint, about an 8-year stint in Florida up until late 2012, early 2013, when I moved back here to Johnstown, which is my hometown. And at the time, I had been practicing for maybe 4 or 5 years. My uncle was an attorney here, and he graciously brought me into his firm, which is the firm that I'm still at. And so I was an associate there for several years. And in 2021, I believe it was, he gave me 50% equity in the firm. We changed the name to Ayers Presser Elder Law, and it was sweat equity basically. I didn't pay anything for that 50%. And in 2024, April of 2024, after a lot of thought, I decided that I wanted it to be mine to kind of take the ship where I wanted it to go. And so I made the offer to purchase his interest as well. And as of last April, we completed that buyout, and he is still here with us as senior counsel, semi-retired. But he still does have a small caseload with us. And but yeah, so I made that decision in 2024.
Yeah, you had probably particular challenges, I would imagine, taking over. So, how long was your uncle practicing before you joined him?
It's interesting because the firm itself has been around for 50 plus years, but with him at the helm, it was close to 20, I would say, that
Okay,
he had been practicing and in charge.
got it. And a 50-year-old firm with a owner for 20 years. you're buying into, and you joined as an associate, you're
Yes.
buying into a culture, systems, lack thereof systems, um, tribal practices, just how we do things here. I would imagine that was quite a challenge for you coming in as the niece and young associate.
It really was, Steve. I had to really, initially, I felt like I kind of had to tiptoe around a lot of things, especially because there was the family dynamic on top of the relationship between myself as either an associate or a partner. So there were small changes that even as an associate, I tried to help implement, but it was really difficult to make any global systemic changes. Even as a partner with him, it was just difficult to do that, and that was really the impetus for me to want to buy him out and say, you know what, I just want to do it and roll with it.
So, Lauren, you bought the practice, you became a sweat equity owner in 2021, and you bought your uncle out like last year, right? Like 2024.
Yes, April of 2024.
And then you joined Atticus when?
I joined Atticus in August of 2024. So shortly after that buyout, I really felt like I needed some guidance. And I knew that when I did the buyout, I had thought about bringing on a consultant of some type or a coach. I had all of these really great ideas, but I didn't know what to implement, how to implement it, or if there was something else that I just didn't know. And Atticus just really seemed to fit the bill.
And how did you find Atticus?
So I follow a company called Kraus Financial. I purchase for my clients all of our Medicaid annuities through them, and they had a free diagnostic resource tool through Atticus on their site. And so I did it. Ran the tool, and it offered me a free consultation with you guys. And after I had my meeting, I started, admittedly, Steve, listening to this podcast a few times, and from there I really liked it, and I thought, you know what, this is exactly what I think I need.
See, that's how you get on the podcast, is you tell me that you like the podcast. It's an important thing.
Yep.
It's an important strategy. I'm just saying, it's a good strategy.
It's
So
my
you
Monday
started.
morning walks. That's where my Monday morning or Monday evening walks. That's what I listen.
I appreciate it either way. So, were there, when you listened to were there particular episodes that caught your attention as someone who's kind of out there lurking, thinking about maybe this is the right community to join or not? What were some of the episodes that you recall?
It's hard for me to even pinpoint one in particular, but just overall, I loved listening to people who have done it and frankly, who had the guts to do it, because that was something that I really struggled with, was getting the courage to make the decision to say, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to start to make these changes. My uncle is still here, my former partner is still of counsel here at the office, and so whatever changes I make, it's like you're stepping on his toes a little bit by coming in and making these sweeping adjustments to a practice that he essentially ran for so many years. So it took some courage to do that. And listening to the podcasts and then getting involved with Atticus generally, it really did give me the courage to say, okay, you know what? Yes, you can do this, because look at how many other people have done it.
Generally, Mark Metzger, who's your coach in your group program, his banner waving flag is, if Steve can do it, anyone can do it. So I was expecting that joke somewhere in there. I was expecting that joke somewhere. So so you joined one of the group programs, and I mean, the gross revenue of your firm's up how much this year?
Like a little over 35%, our gross is up.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's for your first year in, 35% growth is fantastic.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the decision. And you said it took courage. You listened to some podcasts, worked up your courage. And I always find it interesting for people, because sometimes they have a conversation like called "I'm not ready," and "I'm not ready" is more of a feeling. Like it's an adult version of I'm scared. Like I'm just scared. What was it that made you go, okay, I'm just going to take the risk. I'm going to dive in. What was it?
It really, I think, was one of my initial conversations with Juliana, who's one of my advisors with Atticus. One of my initial conversations with her, we talked about these, like I said, just general strategies that people have used, and how other members of Atticus have done X, Y, and Z, and the strides that they have made, and not just in their practice, but in their personal life. I'm a mom of two young kids. I'm a wife. I mean, I have other things that I want to do outside of my career,
That's
and
crazy. That's crazy talk. So you want to raise a family and be married?
I know it is crazy. How can
This
you do
crazy
that and
talk.
be a law firm owner, right?
This
So,
crazy
there,
talk.
there were all of these things, and just hearing the stories of other people, going to summit, my first summit and my first work day, it was so eye opening to me. And I came home and I told my husband, I'm like, that's it. We're doing this. And I had all of these ideas. And one of the first things though that I had to do, Steve, and this was a big one. Like when I say I jumped in head first, I dove in head first for sure. The space that we had been in at our office was reasonably sized, maybe 2,500 square feet, but we were growing out of it. We were cramped. It was just small, and it just wasn't working for us. I was just uncomfortable there all the time. And so the first thing that I did in terms of big changes was our lease happened to be up in March of this year. And so one of the first things that I did after that going to Summit last November was I started looking at new spaces, and we moved into a much larger space that I got to build out and be able to mold it so that it was going to work with the changes and the things that I wanted to do. We moved here in March of this year, and we've just been loving it ever since. It was a great move, and it really was one of the biggest things that was so helpful in being able to implement some of the other changes that we've done.
Okay, so let's take that apart a little bit. So strategy one was that you invested significantly in the physical space of the firm.
Yes.
Why would, and I know I hear what you're saying about that from a like an emotional perspective. You felt cramped, you didn't like it, but from a financial perspective, what was the play there for you?
So one of the things that I really wanted to do was I really wanted to shift our initial appointments, our initial intake appointments with clients to our legal assistants as opposed to the attorneys taking on that work. And right now, attorney wise, it's myself and I have one associate attorney. Previously, we were taking on all of that ourselves. And we didn't have anywhere to meet with anyone in that old office space except for in our personal offices. And in one of my big goals in all of this, of course, is to start to free up my time, whether it's time to work in other aspects of the business or personally. And so shifting everything to the legal assistance was going to be a big step in that right direction, but I couldn't do it in the old place. And so I was willing to take the leap because it was a big financial burden, and I'm really proud to say that I was able to pay cash for that build out. And I didn't have to take a loan out, and some people might question whether that was a good idea or a bad idea, but for us it worked. And so it's just been able I've just been able to make so many of these future adjustments because of that move. So I was willing to do it. And I knew that we had good cash flow, and that I was going to just have even better cash flow if I was able to implement these changes, like having all of the initial intake taken on by the legal assistants.
So non-lawyers doing initial, man, you are just a crazy woman.
I
Like
know.
this is crazy.
I
Like I've
got a
never
lot of
heard.
backlash for that one, I have to say.
Did you get a lot of backlash for that? Like what
I
was the backlash?
I did. I got some question marks from my former partner, which I had a feeling I was going to get. I had some question marks from my team. I didn't spring it on them. I really prepped them for it. We did a lot of training. I really tried to empower them to make mistakes essentially throughout this process, and it's okay. Be nice to people, have a good conversation with them, get to know them. That's what you need to do a good initial intake, in my opinion, is just to develop that initial relationship with these people who are coming to us with some type of problem that they're looking to have solved. And if they know that you're going to be there for them, then you've won. And so when I phrased it to them in that way, and we went through the training and all of the steps, that backlash fizzled. And I think we've been doing it now since end of March of this year. We've had all of the intakes through non-lawyers, and it's been working out beautifully.
And what training did you do?
A lot of it was just making sure that they felt comfortable with the substantive law in order to talk to them to the potential clients about those things. Coming up with some really good scripts that, not that they would read verbatim, of course, but just things that they can have in their back pocket to be able to guide the conversations if they had somebody that maybe is more introverted and not as conversational, and making sure that they're listening for keywords. And oh, if you hear somebody talk about, hey, I'm looking to protect my assets, or I'm looking to make sure that I don't lose everything to a nursing home, all of those kind of key terms, that's what we're trying to teach our staff to be able to recognize, so that they know which direction people may have to go with their legal services.
That's great. So you invested in a new platform, let's just call it. And one of the things I like to think about it is your space is a capability platform. It's a stage for performance. So you redesigned it, rethought your workflow to say, okay, how do I have non-lawyers do the bulk of the intake and the bulk of the client relationships management, I guess, for lack of a better word. And then you spent time training them on how to do that. You practiced with scripts. You gave them permission to fail. You told them it's totally okay. Uh, did you make adjustments to pricing?
We have. We did that a little later on, but yes, this year, in August of this year, we implemented a new, not necessarily a new fee structure. We are pretty much entirely at fixed pricing, flat fees here with what we do. But I, I was looking at everything, and two things. Number one, I think that the fees were too low. They were just too low. That part was easy to recognize. And then the other thing too was we really had previously developed a culture of discounting things, as a way of trying to get people to continue to come back to us. And I never personally bought into that mindset. I always feel that if you treat people respectfully and you give them good quality legal services and good quality work, then they're going to see the value in what you do, in the value in your services. And you don't have to discount in order for people to want to work with you. And that's the mindset that I've always had. But I felt like the firm as a whole didn't necessarily follow that. And so that was one of the big things that we don't discount anymore. The fee is what the fee is. And it might have some built-in things for obviously our staff and family. But aside from that, we stick to our fee chart.
Lauren, when you looked at raising your prices and adjusting your pricing and avoiding the discounting, what were some of your fears?
Well, I don't know if I would say it was my fears, but I think that for the office culture itself and for the staff, and sometimes I notice it with my associate on occasion, it's recognizing that the value in your services is not the cost. That's not what brings people in necessarily. At least that's not what I want to be the driving force for people to come to work with us. I want them to see that we're treating them with respect and empathy, and that we are providing them with quality legal services, things that are important to them. We're taking the time to learn about them and to really assess the things that they need and what they value. That brings value to our services, not the discount.
Got it. So this is an important thing for anyone who's listening. The discount mentality makes it about the money and makes it about the price that someone's paying for the service. What you've done is flipped it on its head and say, what I want you to focus on as a team and as an associate is actually delivering great service, taking good care of them, showing empathy, understanding their problem, and fixing the problem. And if you do those things, then the price takes care of itself. Is that really your point? Is that what you're kind of
Exactly.
arguing for?
Yes, definitely.
Perfect. So when we think about this, what were some of the other changes that you've made that allowed such a significant jump in revenue this year? Hey, Steve, I was just thinking, and sorry to interrupt the show, but if you're new to Atticus, maybe you could do what Lauren did and take advantage of doing a practice growth diagnostic. It's one of the things where you meet with one of our advisors and really think through the core areas of your firm that you could use work with. You'll leave the diagnostic not only with a disc profile, but a greater understanding of how to improve your practice and walk away with 3 really important top actions to take. So usually the investment for that is $325. But if you click the link below and tell them Steve sent you, we'll hook you up with a no-charge practice growth diagnostic so you can start taking some of the actions that Lauren did. So once again, take advantage of this because action trumps thinking any day of the week.
Steve, some of the other changes that we have made in addition to a new intake process, new fee structure, for myself personally, I am really, really working, and I'm trying to impress this upon my team as well. I'm really, really working on setting better boundaries. Again, whether it's within the firm or whether it's for myself at home and in my personal life, but within the firm structure itself. I can remember before I was a partner, when I was an associate, there would be so many times when a client would come into the office completely unsolicited. They didn't have an appointment, they weren't on the schedule, and my partner would literally run to the waiting room to have a conversation with them. It wasn't because they had planned it. It was because they felt obligated to do that. It was because he felt like if I don't go out there and have this conversation with this client, they're going to think I don't like them. They're going to think that I'm a bad attorney. I don't want to go into his mindset, of course, but that was my perspective of it. And I just remember always thinking to myself, I feel like there's something off with that. And the off with that is that there's no boundaries there. It makes you completely accessible to people. And so we are, our policy now with our clients and with anybody really is, if you have a question, if you need us for something, we really don't take walk-ins. We ask that you schedule a time to be able to meet with your assigned legal assistant, or particularly if it's something that you need the attorney for. And along those lines, we have within all of our different case journeys, which is something that we're trying to implement now. We're specifically setting in attorney meetings and attorney times so that with each case, for example, if it's an estate planning matter, you're going to get your design meeting with the attorney. You're also going to get a brief review meeting with the attorney. And so we're trying to build these in so that we're able to maintain those boundaries, so that we're not getting unsolicited calls all the time or unsolicited emails all of the time. I've also personally did a time template, which I know is something that is a great Atticus tool, and that's where I learned it from. Time blocking my schedule. All of my staff has a copy of it now. They know exactly when I have designated times for things like staff questions, when I have designated times for client meetings and client calls and client interfacing. All of that is built into my personal time template. My associate is now utilizing her own time template, and it's just really been a way to free us up and prevent that harboring resentment of people and of clients, which was another thing that I felt like we had a lot of previously.
Let's say more about that. Talk to me because I've really have experienced lawyers being resentful towards their own practices, resentful a little bit towards their clients, and sometimes the team's resentful. So talk to me why you use that word. What do you mean by resentful?
I still sometimes see this and I have to stop people in their tracks whenever they do it. But clients calling with even a basic question, and it's a problem, meaning it's a problem for us to be able to answer that question or help them with whatever it is that they need help with. And the reality is that's our job. That's what we do, is we help our clients with those problems. And I think that part of the reason why people would roll their eyes or be exasperated by, oh, so and so called again, is in part because number one, we were always discounting our fees. And so we felt like we were working for free. And we, number two, didn't have good boundaries in place. We were letting people just come in and out of this office, in and out of our lives half of the time, willy nilly, and we just didn't have a good structure there. And so we were being interrupted in the middle of doing other things. And of course, you're going to be resentful when that happens. Of course, you're going to be resentful whenever it's 5 o'clock and somebody opens the front door and they have this expectation of something that you feel you need to suddenly do before you leave the office. We don't have that anymore. We have become much more routine. Again, we have these really good boundaries in place, and we work hard at it every day. At least I do, and I'm proud to say that my team is really, I think, starting to follow those same mindsets with their day to day work as well.
I have a weird question for you. How high of an I is your uncle? On a
Quite.
scale of 1 to 100, is he a 85, a 90, 95, 100? How high of
Probably,
an
and he admittedly has not done the disc, but I would say 90 to 95. He's up there.
I? Yep.
He's up there.
And what's your disc profile?
I am a high CS.
Yeah.
Definitely a high C.
So this is beautiful. So the everything that you're sharing, it's one of the reasons that we encourage the lawyers and their teams to take the disc profile, is everything that you're sharing about how the firm operates or operated. As the audience is listening, they may be hearing it from multiple perspectives. But this is a classic high influencer culture firm. So everything that you've described is pretty much to the T a classic high law firm culture. This is kind of everybody loves them, discounting, prices are all over the place. Sometimes a lot of free work. We drop everything. A super, super, super conscientious conversation around the relationship far more than anything else. The relationship with the client, the relationship with the prospect, the need to feel that the relationship is paramount is incredibly the genesis of everything this firm does. And then we bring in a high CS, conscientious, steadfast, and you bring discipline, systems, process, dotting the I's, crossing the T's, um, and just, okay, this is how the boundaries, this is how we work here. So I would imagine your poor uncle is suffering from some whiplash and culture shock. Have you turned the ship, expanded the firm, increased revenues, and are executing time templates, executing boundaries, executing performance standards? Um, I would imagine he's like going, I have no idea what's happening. Seems to be working, but I have no idea what's happening.
That is accurate.
He's really going, I don't know what's going on, but it seems to be everything's working.
You hit the nail on the head. Yes.
How's the team doing? Did you lose a lot of people? Did we replace people? How's the team doing?
No, we have not lost anyone. If anything, we're looking to potentially bring somebody else on, in a paralegal legal assistant type of role. No, everybody is really committed. I hate to use the word loyal, but I really do have a loyal staff. And many of them have been with us for over 10 years. We just had two of our newest people celebrate their 1 year anniversary. It's been great. And they really are starting to buy in to these things. And I think that a big reason for that is because, on top of all of the other things, just beginning this year, we started implementing an employee bonus program, which is something that was
Ooh.
also completely new. And I did it on a firm wide basis. So I didn't necessarily do it by department. I basically recognized that everyone in the firm plays a part in everything else. So, sure, we have our estate admin team, we have our guardianship team, we have our estate planning team, but the reality is everybody really does a great job of helping everybody else out. We do have a really good firm culture in that way here. Everybody gets along very well. We don't have much in the way of toxicity in that regard. And I decided that I felt like I wanted to really reward them for all of this. And because they're the ones that are in the trenches. I mean, I'm back here in my office in the very back of the building, and they're the ones that are out there doing all the work, especially now with the way we have things set up now. So we started implementing an employee bonus program. We have several benchmarks that we hit on a monthly basis, and they bonus financially off of that. We're hoping to meet our annual revenue goal, which we are on track to do by the end of November. And I told the office, I said, we're going to close for the last 2 weeks of the year if we meet that goal. And as of now, I think we're going to do it.
Yeah, you're pointing out something that is a real problem for a lot of lawyers. So, for the years coaching lawyers when it came to bonus programs, the problem with bonus programs is that they work, and
Mhm.
you have to comply with them when they work. You have
Yes.
to,
Yeah.
you have
We paid out a lot in bonuses, Steve, this year.
you have, and have lawyers call me and go, I've had to write checks and they got to give them time off. But I'm like, you're rewarding them for the bonuses you set up. Yeah, but I didn't think they would do it. So it's
Yeah,
really good to
they
hear
do
you do
work.
it. Good for you. That's good. That's really great work. So if you were to give advice to a lawyer saying, well, maybe I'll try a bonus system, what would you suggest? What would you tell them to kind of get their training wheels on the bike, so to speak?
Well, I still feel like, Steve, that I have my training wheels on with that one, admittedly, but I think it's important. You don't have to have 10 different things. We have three main benchmarks that we look to hit:
What are they?
annual or monthly revenue. Then
Great.
we have our annual revenue, of course, but monthly gross revenue. We have for our estate planning cases, the number of estate planning files that are, quote, closed, meaning documents signed and packages completed. And then for estates here in Pennsylvania, we have inheritance tax returns that we have to file. And that's a kind of a triggering mark, frankly, for when we get paid. And so it goes by inheritance tax return filings that month. So we have
That's
those
great.
three benchmarks, and the entire firm bonuses off of that. So again, it's not just the estate team that gets that bonus. We bonus the whole firm because, again, in the end, they all play some part in it.
Yeah, that's great. So we have an annual revenue bonus. Is that correct?
The annual revenue bonus, if we meet that goal, the bonus is our 2 weeks off at the end of the
So
year.
we nail the number. We get 2 weeks off. We have a
Hmm.
monthly gross number bonus.
Correct. Hmm.
We have a monthly files closed bonus.
For estate planning cases specifically, yes.
Yep. And then we have on the administration side a trigger event, which basically sets up the monthly payment, or I should say monthly payment, for the payment on a file, which is the filing of a return.
Correct. Hmm.
Right. So if as an audience, as you guys and gals are listening to this, what she's done is she's really simplified this and look for key measurements that everybody on the team can wrap their brain around. These are not complicated measurements, and everybody knows how these measurements work. But for you, I would imagine each one of these impact cash flow. Like you're like, okay, I know if you do this, we get money here. If you do this, we get money here. And if we do this, we get money here. And if we nail the end of the year bonus, boom, 2 weeks off. Everybody gets 2 weeks off, including me, right?
Exactly.
Good. Very good. And this is a great place to start with most bonus systems. I usually see three versions of bonuses. This is where people start. Number one is usually a gross revenue bonus system. Then I start to see gross plus individual key performance indicators. Then I see over time people shift to a net profitability bonus system. So you're kind of at a great stage of this experiment of learning bonus comp for a team in a law firm. Really well done. And you've done all this work in what period of time?
Well, most of what I've talked about so far has been done just this year in 2025.
So you are executing very quickly, very well, driving revenue, putting bonus systems in, putting focusing systems in like the time template. What else have you pulled off the Atticus shelf and put into play?
I'm not sure, Steve, if this is technically on the Atticus shelf, but it is something that I am learning from Atticus. And that is having, we've started using price contexts for our, for especially estate planning cases that are presented to our clients by the legal assistants at the intake. And it's working out really nice because we're focusing it on the services that we are providing, but we're giving it to the clients in a way where they're recognizing what their goals are. So I'm, as part of all of this, I've talked about training our staff and things like that, and learning about keywords. And one of those things is always asking our clients what their goal is. And I think that that is something that is important regardless of what your practice area is. You know, what do you want to fix? What's the most important thing we can help you with today? They don't even necessarily know what their quote goals are, but that's how we can assess what their goals are. And then based off of that, we show them, okay, we offer you this package, we offer you this package. My guess is you're going to want this package based on what you're telling me you want us to do for you. And they don't necessarily need to know that it is a revocable trust plan with all of these bells and whistles. They just need to know that they have X, Y, and Z problems, and this particular package is going to solve X, Y, and Z problems. And so instead of having this whole big fee chart that we're showing to our clients, which by the way, we're changing our terminology on that too. We used to call them fee agreements. We used to call them fees. Mark Metzger said, "Don't call them that anymore." So guess what? That's what we're going to be changing our lingo. We're really looking to say price and cost and engagement agreement and things like that whenever we're having those conversations with clients and we're presenting them with that information.
I like it. The word I would throw in there as well as investment.
Yes, I
So
like
it's important. I mean, it's important to understand, and any of you that are listening to this and you're experimenting with fixed prices in your firm, the framework for this, and I don't get too deep into it, is a decision methodology called a choice context. And you frame a choice context with options and money. And the quickest way of thinking a choice context is if you walk into Starbucks and you decide what type of coffee to get, and you basically have the tall, the grande, and the venti, small, medium, large. You see this at McDonald's, you see this in any fast food restaurant. And so what you're starting to do is experiment with packaging of offers that solve a problem. And you're moving away from the stuff to the problem and the solution for the problem, but not the stuff that solves the problem, which is very important. It's very important. Lawyers that are doing fixed will win most of the time on profitability. Lawyers that are doing hourly, especially in this day and age, with the rules in your jurisdiction in particular, with the AI rules, are pretty brutal. Pennsylvania is one of the, I think, most aggressive next to Puerto Rico, and the duty placed on lawyers that has directly come from the shift in the use of generative AI in a firm. So the lawyers that are listening to this that are in the hourly world, I'm going to encourage you to listen to this and start asking yourself, how do I experiment with fixed pricing in my firm? We can probably do other episodes on this. It's just really well done. Really, hopefully people can appreciate that you became the sole shareholder, joined Atticus, and you probably implemented 10 things in less than 12 months, driven up the revenue by 35%, plus moved to a larger space,
yeah.
joined Atticus. You're like executing all over the place. Like,
I'm tired, Steve. I'm admittedly a little bit tired, and I'm hoping that once we kind of get through this wave and we have things in a way that feels good, we're gonna keep things relatively status quo, at least for a little while. I'm really trying to be mindful of my team and not bombarding them too much. Maybe some would say I have already, but not bombarding them too much continually with new things. So I feel like though that we're on the right track now, and we're close to being in a place where I feel like we can settle for a bit.
I'm not buying it.
You see right through me, Steve.
I'm not buying it for one moment. You can tell your team that. Maybe they'll never listen to this episode, but I think you're just getting your little, I think you're just getting a taste of what you're capable. I think your courage muscle is growing. I think your confidence is growing. I think the future for you is going to be very, very bright. How do you choose what to implement when? How are you thinking about that from an execution perspective? Because we have people in programs that are saying, I don't know, I don't know if this will work for me. You don't understand. I practice this type of law, but you've been going boom, 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 boom. What are you choosing to implement, and what's your priorities?
Admittedly, my priority initially was a selfish one, and that was because I wanted more time for myself. I wanted in two ways. Number one, I wanted more time with my family. I wanted to feel like when I was at home that I was present, that I wasn't spinning my wheels mentally like I was still at the office. And then I have found that for myself personally, um, I really love working on the business more than in the business. And I think I've always known that about myself. But in implementing this, that was another reason why I wanted to start to make these changes, is because I really want to free myself up professionally to do things not only with this firm but otherwise as well. One of my passions is speaking. And I do a lot of speaking engagements, both locally, and I've been fortunate that I've been able to do things across Pennsylvania for different organizations, and I would love to lean into that a bit more. And so, making all of these adjustments, that's kind of how I was picking and choosing what I was going to do. Was okay, how am I going to start to free up my time? That was really how I my mindset when I got started.
I think it's a great strategy. I think it's an absolutely fantastic strategy. Your first strategy was, how do I get more time with my family, which increases the energy, reduces the resentment, puts wind in the sails, and creates a very powerful boundary. And then the second thing you approach, which was, how do I take more stuff off my plate so I can focus more on some of the growth strategies and on some of the business issues? Really well done. Just great instincts, really great instincts. If you look back and you're going to talk to someone and someone just stopped you at the summit and say, Lauren, like, you crushed it this year, incredible, incredible year, Lauren. What would be the top three pieces of advice that you would give someone, like how to do what you've done? Top three.
I think besides having guts and just doing it, I think the first thing I would say is it's really important to be intentional. I think that for someone like me that has a million ideas swimming around in my head, I think it's really easy to just start throwing things out there. But if you don't do it in an intentional, systemic, or systematic way, um, it can get a little bit messy. And again, I say that from both a personal and a professional standpoint. So being intentional, taking the time, you don't necessarily have to. I know I made a lot of changes in a very short period, but I didn't wake up in the morning and then run into the office and say, okay, guess what? Legal assistants are doing the intake starting today. It was a process. We really took our time with these things, and it was well thought out. So I think that being intentional is probably one of the biggest things. The second thing is making sure that as part of whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's making changes to your practice or anything like that, boundaries are essential, again, from both a professional and a personal standpoint. Um, that is something, protecting my own time has become really, really important to me. And again, it all feeds together, in my opinion. It's kind of like a big tangled web, a lot of the things that I'm doing professionally, it's because I am trying to keep those boundaries that I have set for myself, on a personal level. And then the third thing I would probably say is, again, as part of all of this, making sure that you are investing in your people, invest in your team, whether it's through a bonus structure, because this is going to uproot them. And my team, it's a lot of high S type people, so they really value stability. And so for me to come in here and shake things up, that can be really unsettling for them. And so I wanted to make sure that they felt like they had an incentive and that they were invested in it themselves too. And making sure that, again, they feel empowered throughout the whole process. So invest in your team, whether it's through training programs, bonus programs, whatever it is, that those things have been invaluable to us.
Really well done. Really, really well done. What do you think you're the most proudest of as you look past, over the past year? What do you think, like, what do you think I really did great here?
I'm going to switch gears to answer that question a little bit, Steve, because for me, and I'm going to not get emotional when I
You
say
can get,
this,
you can get emotional. It's totally fine.
but as I said before, a big reason why I'm doing all of this is because I want to be there for the people that matter the most to me, and that's my kids. I have a son who is 10, I have a daughter who is 5, and they view their mom as a really, really hard worker. But sometimes, at least up until this year, that's what they saw me as. I was mom that rushed out the door before they went to school in the morning. I was mom that got home. I was pretty good about getting home before dinner, but I would work in the evenings. I would work on the weekends. And don't get me wrong, I still do that occasionally, but now I make it a point. I'm very intentional about, I leave my office most days at 3:30 so that I'm home when they get off the school bus. I don't go into the office until usually around 8:15, 8:30, which is after they get on the school bus. I take the time to get my daughter ready in the morning. And as a 5-year-old, that's really important to her. And so just being able to be there for the people that matter the most to me. My husband, he didn't see me that much either. And so being able to be intentional for them was really, really important to me. And that was my big why in honestly in doing all of this. And the financial gains are awesome. I mean, we're taking a trip to Scottsdale, Arizona next week, the four of us. And that's something that we have committed to, is taking a trip, in addition to our big family beach trip that I take with my entire family. Just the four of us, we want to take a trip every year to someplace new that we get to experience together. And Steve, this year, the 2 trips that I have taken, I did not bring my laptop. I was offline. And that is something that I would never, ever have been able to do before if I was the one that was in charge of doing all of the client communications and all of the client appointments and all of the signings. And it never would have happened.
Good work. Really good work. That's really great work. That makes me very, very happy to hear.
Thank you.
You really, the goal is a great life and a great practice, and you really have transformed the life and the practice in a very brief period of time. Well done.
I'm trying, Steve. We're all a work in progress, and I think that's really important to remember. Is it doesn't happen overnight, and I'm still learning. Like I feel in part an imposter sitting here having this conversation with you, because I'm still learning so much every single day about what I'm capable of and what our firm is capable of and what I'm doing. But I'm trying. I'm not going to give up on that. And I know that I can have a great practice, great life, just by even making small baby steps in a forward direction. And I've done a lot in a short period of time. But I'm really proud of it.
You should be very proud of it, and you're doing more than trying. You're succeeding at a very, very fast pace. So, as we wrap up the show, if there's one piece of advice that you could give to that mom or that dad who is struggling with what you're struggling with, the parenting, the partnering, the practicing, just trying to balance all those balls in the air, there's one piece of advice, one glimmer of hope that you could give them, what would it be?
I think it's about, and I've said this several times in this episode, it's about protecting your time and setting those boundaries. Again, whether it's professionally or personally. If you have a goal of, for example, being home at 3:30 every day to get your kids off the school bus, it's impossible to do that if you're allowing clients or other people to bombard you with things at 3:25 as you're walking out the door. You need to be able to set those boundaries and protect your time, and to be confident in doing it, and to know that it doesn't make you a bad person to say no to someone. It doesn't make you a bad attorney to not take that client call, or to instead, send the email that says, "Hey, I'm not available right now, but how about this Friday at 10 a.m.? Are you around for a call then?" It's okay. It's okay to not be immediately available, because if whether it's getting home to your kids or whatever it might be, the only way that you're going to be able to continuously do that on a consistent basis is by protecting, the time that you've set out.
It takes some courage to say, not now, I can talk to you later because I'm saying yes to my kid.
Mhm.
And it's very important to people to hear that you made a decision. You'll tell the client or the prospect or the team member, not now, maybe later. Here's when we can talk about it. But I've said yes to my kid. I'm going to be at my house or at the bus stop for my child. And there'll be plenty of times I can say yes later. But this moment in my life, I'm going to say not now for you on this issue because I've already committed to yes to my child, which is very, very important. This is one of the reasons in the Path Workshop, this is one of the reasons in our programs, we push so hard on the great life. Because what you've done is the decision to commit to the great life with your family and your children has fueled the growth of the firm.
It really has, Steve. That is, you really hit the nail on the head, definitely.
And the commitment, like you said, the boundaries, the commitment to be a better mom, a better wife, having a better lifestyle, then confined the firm to a boundary, a construct, a positive constraint of time that we must perform, and we must perform well within this time frame. And then your time template allows you to look at that whole week at a glance strategically and saying, this is how we get this done. So it's a really incredible strategic process. Very well done, Lauren. Very well done. Any last words of wisdom before we wrap up?
If you haven't joined Atticus, join Atticus. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to do any of these things if it wasn't for being a part of the practice growth program, having the resources available. I live by my great life focuser, Steve, and I've always been a paper planner person anyways, so it fit right into what I liked to begin with. But having those written daily and weekly and monthly and quarterly and lifelong goals and things that I wish to achieve, it's been incredible for me. And I really mean that. I could not have, I don't know if I would have gotten the courage at this stage in my life. Maybe eventually I would have, but I don't know if I would have been able to do all of this without being a part of Atticus.
Thank you for that. And thank you for trusting us. Thank you for trusting your coach, Mr. Metzger. Thank you for trusting your member advisor. And thank you for leaning into the process. I honestly am stunned with how much you've gotten done so quickly. And now I understand where the wind in your sails comes from, which is this extraordinary commitment to being a great mom, an extraordinary commitment to being a great wife and having a great life, which is ultimately driving a phenomenal growth in your firm. You've been a perfect guest today, and I just want to thank you for sharing everything that you've done authentically and courageously. Well done.
Thank you so much, Steve. I really enjoyed our talk.
Thanks for joining this week's episode of Great Practice, Great Life. Please tune in weekly to get the next episode. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe, like, and don't hesitate to share it with a friend who you think this episode could help. With that, thanks, and I hope you enjoy next week's episode.